Hey guys, we're doing a little bit of an opinion piece. There's been a lot of talk about the Asmund's Fang versus Rapier, Blade of Seldor, Inquisitor's Mace, and Scythe. And all the talk doesn't have to do with, what's better or not. The talk is simply Fang is too versatile for how cheap it is and how common it is, right? And I want to first ask a bigger question, other than having nothing to do with the current state of the game, and which is, what is your opinion balance-wise? Why am I using two? What is your opinion balance-wise on what a niche is? Like, we all know the definition of a niche, but what do you mathematically consider is a worthwhile niche to fulfill, right? And the reason I'm asking this question is because then you have to also compare it to the grind and stuff like that it takes to get these weapons. For example, if you wanted to fulfill the stab niche, you get a Hosta, right? Or you can get a Dragon Hunter Lance if it's a dragon. What do you think is an appropriate number that makes that grind fulfilling in comparison to another weapon that is, considered second or third BIS? And I think for me, that number is 15%. Very random number I'm throwing out there, of course, but for me, 15% seems to be about the sweet spot where I think it's worth the time grinding for something. And it feels good, right? It's a really important thing to consider is a player can't really notice like a 3 to 5% buff. Like, I thought honestly that the Scythe was better than Fang because they're only within a few percentage of each other, right? So I couldn't even tell. If it was like 10% better, like 15, I would for sure probably be able to tell, right? Perfect kill. I don't know if it counts because I did mess up one of the prayers. But for Vardorvis, ideally my goals for the boss in terms of balancing, I would like Scythe to be, I would say, between 5 and 10% better than the Fang, and then it's up to the player to decide whether it's worthwhile paying those charges. I would say at 5%, most low-level players wouldn't want to pay that charge. Lower, or let's say not lower-level players, because no low-level player has a Scythe, but a poorer person who has a Scythe, who just bought it, would probably reconsider using it, right? So maybe 5% is appropriate, maybe 10%. Of course, up to the player, it's up to your opinions. And then let's talk about versus the Rapier, Blade of Seldor, and Inquisitor's Mace. I want to first ask another question, which is, what do you consider the Rapier's predecessor? Is it Whip? Because Whip is commonly referred to as like the low defense Slayer monster. Like, everyone remembers like hitting a Bloodveld with a Whip, I assume, right? Or something like that. And Bloodvelds are usually like considered to be like a low defense monster for Slayer. Or would you consider it to be the Hosta? Like, it depends on the content you're doing, right? And I think that's one of the beauties of the system we have, is that it depends on the context. And I'm okay with the Rapier and Seldor receiving a buff over the Whip, to be honest. I think maybe about 2 max hits would be really good without like destroying game balance anyway, because like Slayer is like barrage meta anyway. Who cares? I'm not gonna say who cares, but you know what I mean, like. But yeah, like, if someone, let's say theoretically melee Slayer was good, right? Or like okay-ish. What would you consider the niche to be fulfilling? All of these guys are low defense, so you can use technically anything. Like, you can use the Whip at any of the monsters, just as Skeletal Wyverns, although they have somewhat respectable defense. Would you say bringing a crush weapon such as an Inquisitor, like a monster is weak to crush, would you consider wasting an extra inventory slot for 15% DPS? Most players would say yes. I would argue most players would even argue 5%, but it really depends on the content. If theoretically the Scythe was better at, let's say, Zabak by 5%, heck, even 10%, how many players would you think would actually bring the Scythe to Zabak? One, Scythe is not even practical to use as Zabak due to, you know, Zabak trying to bite your head off. But you could do step backs, and then you could have like a sweaty player make it worth, right? That's one of the niches I've always asked about. Versatility and utility can be a great niche to fulfill as well. I would say I would like for team next for it to be worth to bring the trifecta of melee weapons, you know? Kuro has a weakness to slash, Fumus has a weak to stab. I would like for there to be, and they're 1x1 monsters, I would like for there to be a trifecta for it to be worth in teams to bring all of the melee weapons for those bosses respectively. Is that actually the case? No, because T-Bow's actually just straight up better at all of them, other than for like overkill reasons and projectile travel time. But I think at 15%, you start to make a case for yourself, maybe at like a 5+ player scale, where it is worth to bring him if they are, you know, theoretically that much actual DPS over the T-Bow and whatnot. And then T-Bow can always be the versatility, bring it because you need more inventory space for food, right? But just some food for thought. I don't want to talk about what I think should be appropriate for like buffing or nerfing any longer, because then we get into like a whole discussion of like per monster and stuff like that, which is definitely too much for one video. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Let me know what you think is a good niche definition for you guys.